Nope, it's not clickbait, and I haven't been pwned either. But what I do want to talk about is Home Assistant's relatively new service that allows them to check to see if any passwords in your add-ons are part of the I've been pwned list. That is a new security feature, relatively new. It's been out for a few versions of Home Assistant now, but I've received some questions on it. So I want to talk about it for a few minutes and kind of give you some background and some highlights. So let's start with what it is. What it's not actually is this. There is a Have I Been Pwned add-on or integration. And this one here basically checks your emails to see if you've been, any of your email addresses show up in a pwned list from the Have I Been Pwned site, and you'll get a notification. That's not what we're talking about today. What we are talking about, however, is the Pwned Passwords and Secrets section that was introduced earlier in one of the earlier versions of Home Assistant. And what they do is they check periodically to see if you have any of your passwords in your add-ons, in your configurations that are part of this list. And this is a service called Have I Been Pwned? It has currently 613,584,246 real-world passwords previously exposed in data breaches. So because they've been exposed in data breaches, they're not available or not suitable for ongoing use in anything. If you have one password that is on multiple sites or systems or accounts and it gets pwned, then people potentially have access to all of those, which is why I advocate for a password manager. And I do have a video on Bitwarden that is an add-on that I use in Home Assistant if you're interested in that. But anyway, they use this list to check to see if any of your passwords are here. And in this, you're going to get a warning saying, hey, one of your add-ons, one of your configurations has that password in it. Now, they also use what is called KAnonymity. So they're not sending your information out to be checked. They're anonymizing it. And you can read all about this on the Cloudflare blog. But it's basically a service that goes in here and it anonymizes your password hashes. So it's there's two choices they use, two choices you can use for doing stuff. You can either submit the entire password list to a third-party service, or you can download the entire list. In our case, it would go into Home Assistant and then uncompress the data set, run the search. Well, we're not doing that stuff. The middle way is KAnonymity. And in that approach, they add an additional layer of security using a mathematical property known as KAnonymity. That thing, the K thing, it's hard to say it. And you apply it to a password hash in the form of range queries. And so what that means is that the service never gains enough information about non-breach password hash to be able to breach it. So what you're doing is you're sending all these passwords out to the service, but they don't get enough information to actually know what the password is to be able to breach it later on using this KAnonymity property. So you can go through, and there's quite a bit of math and stuff in here that if you want to read about it. And they use these password derivation functions instead of seeking the sol hashes that point to which they're unique. You introduce some ambiguity, and the ambiguity is what allows the passwords not to show up as a breachable password later on. So anyway, you can, again, just read through this whole entire article if you would like to do that. Suffice it to say, the submission from Have I Been Pwned, from Home Assistant to Have I Been Pwned, is anonymized enough that it's not going to be an issue for security based on using the KAnonymity. So they talk about that whole thing here. It returns the results of possible password hashes that match. And when you check the last part of the password hash against this list, and if it's true, if it's been pwned, then it will show you an alert. What you'll get in the notification panel on the side here is you will get a notification that your add-on contains a potentially pwned password. And you'll get this over and over again until you correct the problem. And all you have to do is go into the add-on that it talks about and change the password to something stronger that hasn't been added to the Pwned list. And my recommendation is you create a new password. If you're using a tool like Bitwarden, you can use Bitwarden to actually their generator function, and you can create really strong passwords. And you can create passwords all the way up to 128 characters, including capitals, lowercase, numbers, and special characters, if you want to do that. I generally keep mine down to 16 or so. This is a pretty strong password, and none of my passwords on any of my sites are the same. So if for some reason, and it has occurred, we've seen enough of these things out in the wild, if you end up getting a password that has been breached in some sort of data breach, then that single password is no longer valid. Responsible companies will tell you about this. You change it on that site. If you're using a password manager like Bitwarden or LastPass or something like that, then you know which password that belongs to, which site that password belongs to. You can go in and change it, update your Bitwarden, your LastPass, your password manager, and move on, doing your due diligence on the breach itself and whether or not there's other stuff to take care of course. But you don't have to worry about going and changing a couple hundred sites. So Home Assistant basically goes through and they check this list for you. And if it shows up in here and you get an alert, and I also have a home feed card. I get stuff in my home feed card as well that tells me when I have the same breach, and I will go and correct it. Now, if you're using localized passwords and you're not concerned about that, and you just want to put a password in for configuration setup locally on your local network, I still recommend using good solid passwords. But if you don't want to, there is a way to disable this. And the way you would do that is you would open one of your web terminals, and I have SSH terminal installed. I can run this command on the command line, and it basically stops the checking. This is a power user kind of advanced thing that you want to do. I'm going to type it in direct because pasting it didn't work here. So we're going to type in HA resolution check options. So HA resolution check options. And then the rest of it is -- enabled equals false. And add on pwned. So we're basically turning that off. Add on underscore pwned. And command completed successfully. Now what happens is when I restart the Home Assistant host, then it will stop the checks. Now I'm going to turn that back on because I want to actually use that. So I'm going to leave it turned on. If for some reason you did turn this off, you can actually turn it back on that way. Okay. So I just wanted to talk a few minutes about this actually, have I been pwned? Because I've been asked about it in my channel, and some folks don't understand what the warnings are that you get here in the notifications panel. So I want to just kind of go over that briefly. Security these days, is a really, really big thing. There's a lot of breaches going on. A lot of data is out there. So it's very important, and I tell my family this all the time, make sure you are using a password manager, because a password manager is going to keep up with all of your passwords so you don't have to remember them. And it allows you to set a unique password on every single site, again, because you don't have to remember them. So make sure you're using something like that. Make sure you're staying safe online, and make sure that if you get a warning about your add-on that uses an insecure password, you go ahead and change that in your configuration so that you know that you have safe, secure setups. All right, if you have any questions, put those down in the comments below. Hit me up on Discord. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up, and of course, always hit the alert bell so that you know that when I make new videos or when I go live stream. And we'll see you on the next one.